The Sharks continue to circle as the bounty for the One Ring skyrockets, hits $1 million. Now at Hometown TCG right here, we have a fan and longtime supporter of the channel that actually wants to announce their bounty right here on Hometown TCG. All right, mystery guest, take it away. What are you offering for the One Ring?
$100 billion.
The Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth continues to see all-time hype from regular enthusiasts like you and me. But beyond that, there is a sector of Magic collectors that seem to have unlimited money that are chasing the rarest card ever produced in the history of Magic the Gathering. That's right, the bounty for the One Ring has increased and has hit $1 million. And I know, if you're sitting in front of your computer right now and doing this, that totally makes sense. Now, the person who put out the bounty is actually, I think, a game store. It's a well-known sports card store, and they are not new to the bounty system. It is Dave and Adam's Sports Cards and Collectibles. I believe they're located out of New York City, and they made a very public post saying, hey, we want this card and we'll pay you $1 million for it. Now, as a regular just Magic enthusiast, I had to look up Dave and Adams. I'll admit, I didn't know who they were, but it turns out not only are they major players in the high-end sports card and collectible market, but this is not their first bounty. They are, I guess, pros of the bounty scene, which says to me, this bounty is as good as paid. This is legitimate. Much like Mr. Cassius Marsh, who is known, has a reputation in the community, and I believe his bounty is good, this bounty also seems as good as gold, and they've done this before. Now, there's a stipulation on their bounty, is it has to come within 30 days. Apparently, they are known for putting stipulations on all of their bounties. Why they do that, I'm not an expert. I can assume, like, hey, if I'm going to offer to put this much cash out there to buy something, I don't want it floating around and doing the tour de force before I get my hands on it. I want to get my hands on it as quickly as possible to keep it in as mint of a condition as I possibly can. And maybe that's their way to say, hey, if I'm going to spend this much money, I need a little bit of control over the situation. But there's also other aspects at play here as well. As the One Ring comes out, it's been brought to my attention by George from the May the Zoo Be With You podcast, and he pointed out, and so did Mr. Louie. It's a podcast I'm on every Friday morning over at Kitchen Table TCG. You should definitely go check that one out. It's a ton of fun. But they pointed out, hey, you gotta sell into the hype. And that seems to be a fairly common and reasonable statement to make when you consider trading card games. But I thought something like the One Ring isn't necessarily susceptible to selling into the hype. I like to think it's a one of one. It will continue to gain value forever. But I often talk on this channel about the release cycle of Magic the Gathering and how we, the enthusiasts, kind of gather, all around together. We play these boxes, we build this attachment to this product, and with the rapid release cycle, it kind of goes by the wayside. And Magic 30 is an amazing example of this. For many of us out there, Magic 30 was a death knell in our Magic the Gathering hobby. And lo and behold, because we are getting so many new sets so frequently, and the recent sets have been so good, we have all but forgotten about what might be the biggest disaster in Magic's history. But it got me thinking, is this true for the inverse? The hype of Lord of the Rings is at an all-time high, and I am going to do a sales data video, an update. Spoiler alert, we're tracing upwards towards $2 million in total sales on TCG Player, so make sure you're subscribed for that video. But it does make me wonder, with all of this hype and our ability or our inability to really build this emotional attachment to these sets and hang on to these Magic products, are we at risk of that hype train falling off and something as coveted as the One Ring, which currently sits at $1 million super card, falling out of favor and crashing in value? Now, if this happens, this would be a death knell in modern I would call it I can't call it high-end Magic collecting. Modern Magic super collecting. It says, hey, there's a weird ceiling here and we all have some stuff to figure out, and this would not be a good message for something like that. But I truly believe that this card is not going to push the set for regular people. Whether it comes out, spikes in price, somebody buys it and finds itself worth much less later down the road, I think this set will age extremely favorably, and the meat and potatoes in this set are going to be in the soul rings inside the box. Now, it's often talked about the serialized soul ring when discussing what will push this product, but there's an underrepresented aspect of Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth and the collector packs, and that is the non-serialized Soul Rings. Yes, these coveted Magic cards will not have numbers on them, they will not be foil, but they represent something in Magic that we don't often get from Wizards of the Coast. We have an actual number of cards printed, so if we look on the print sheet, we see that while there's 300 and 700, 900, whatever serialized Soul Rings, there is a factor of 10 of those Soul Rings which are non-serialized, non-foil. But that is still an extremely limited print run when you consider the number of Commander players in the world. Heck, let's take 3,000 as a wonderful number. If there's 3,000 of this treatment of a Magic card out there for a community as massive as Commander, and mention it is the most played card in that format, I think it would be really cool to own it. And I think other enthusiasts are going to come to the same conclusion. The ability to build a collection in this set out of a card that probably won't break the bank for you at first, I think is a really cool opportunity. And as we've talked about before, I'm collecting some cool stuff myself. I'm taking the old DCI player reward promos and I'm putting together a massive collection. I'm getting a playset of everything from that set. And while that collection doesn't represent this insane value amount, something like the One Ring does, it is a cool thing that I find myself enjoying. I could see this happening with the Soul Rings. But getting back to the One Ring, something like the lower end collectibles in the set now spark the question: is this thing going to go further up to the moon, or is the $1 million bounty on the Super Chase in the Lord of the Rings seemingly the ceiling? Well, I'd like to say it is, but when we look at market history, when the bounty came out at 100, 125,000, hit 150, hit 250, jumped to 500, and now has skipped all the way up to $1 million, the rapid increase in price tells me I think there's still a bit to go here. I think there's still some meat on the bone, as we say in the classic car industry. And the fact that the company offering the $1 million is someone so reputable and so well known in the bounty space, it makes me believe that while they want to get their hands on the card, they want to do it as cheaply as possible. They don't want to over offer and get guaranteed to overpay for a card that nobody will want. So I really do believe that there's a little bit of room to go up, and I think 1,250,000, $1.25 million is something that we could see coming here in the near future. Now, who is going to make that bounty? Your guess is as good as mine. I notice that while Mr. Cassius Marsh has been featured on the channel, Posty, you haven't put out a bounty yet, and I think everyone's that's the big one we're all expecting. There might be the Rudy Shadow bounty in the background that he doesn't ever announce, but it's like, Rudy might throw that in his vault. I speak for no one. These are just fun things to think about. But these are things I think about when it comes to this set, and I really think there is some juice to be squeezed out of the orange that is the non-serialized Soul Rings coming up in Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. But what do you think about this set, about the bounty system? Are you putting down $1 million with all of your friends, or are you just going to kind of watch the craziness unfold? I know that I find myself having a ton of fun just watching how this plays down and thinking to myself, man, if I ever pulled that card. Now, we have a conversation on the channel next week. There's been talks about, what does this mean for Magic? Does this push Magic more towards gambling? And I think there's a lot of fairness and a lot of conversation that has to happen there. So make sure you're subscribed, because we have a lot of those conversations next week. Until next time, you guys know me. My name is Josh. Oh, again, we're at 5750. We're racing to the subs. Make sure you share this video. Listen, sharing this video helps me a ton. It helps get more new viewers and more people introduced to our community. So thank you so much for doing that. And again, until next time, you all know me. My name is Josh. I suck at the YouTube outro thing, man. I gotta get better at that. All right, we'll see you around. Goodbye.